Breaking news from Washington. White House staff have reportedly locked down multiple floors as Donald Trump faces mounting internal turmoil. Sources indicate that the lockdown is a response to escalating tensions within the administration, described by insiders as an internal emergency. Staff and security teams are reportedly operating under heightened alert, restricting access and movement within critical areas of the White House. The situation comes amid reports that Trump is losing control over key decision-making processes, leaving senior aides and staff scrambling to manage both communications and security protocols. Witnesses describe a tense environment where standard operations have been interrupted, signaling that this is far more than routine internal management. It's a crisis unfolding in real time. This unprecedented scenario highlights the vulnerability of the administration when internal conflicts escalate to the point of operational disruption. The White House, typically a model of controlled procedure and protocol, is now experiencing visible signs of chaos, with staff taking extraordinary measures to maintain order and security. Sources indicate that the White House lockdown was triggered by a combination of political, operational, and personnel crises. Reports suggest that Trump's leadership style has recently intensified tensions among senior aides, with disagreements over messaging, policy decisions, and strategic direction reaching a boiling point. Staffers say the environment became so volatile that immediate lockdown measures were deemed necessary to prevent further disruption and maintain security. Internal leaks suggest that key advisors were issuing conflicting directives, creating confusion, and breaking down the usual chain of command. Communications were reportedly restricted, and certain areas of the White House were temporarily secured to ensure that sensitive operations could continue without interference. The move underscores the seriousness of the situation, highlighting the strain on both personnel and protocol during this period of internal crisis. Political pressures are also playing a major role. Recent setbacks, controversies, and public scrutiny have left Trump's team under heightened stress, with staffers scrambling to manage both optics and operational stability. The combination of internal conflict and external pressure has created a feedback loop, intensifying the sense of urgency and prompting extraordinary measures like the lockdown. Observers note that this is a rare display of operational strain within the White House, signaling that the administration is facing both a leadership crisis and a logistical challenge. The lockdown is not only a reaction to immediate tensions, but also a preventive measure to stabilize the environment and ensure continuity in critical functions. In response to the escalating tensions, White House staff and security teams have reportedly mobilized rapidly to contain the situation. Access to key floors and offices has been restricted, with security personnel controlling movement to ensure both safety and operational continuity. Staffers are following emergency protocols, coordinating closely to prevent disruptions from spilling over into public-facing communications or critical functions. Sources indicate that senior aides are working overtime to stabilize the internal environment, issuing directives, realigning responsibilities, and attempting to mediate conflicts between rival factions within Trump's team. Communications are tightly monitored, with certain sensitive channels temporarily limited to prevent misinformation or escalation. These measures highlight the urgency and severity of the internal crisis. Observers note that such lockdowns are extremely rare in White House history, typically reserved for national security emergencies or external threats. The fact that the lockdown is reportedly triggered by internal conflict underscores the gravity of the situation and suggests that the administration is under intense pressure from both operational and political fronts. Meanwhile, Trump himself is reported to be struggling to assert control, leaving staffers to manage coordination and messaging under extremely high-pressure conditions. The combination of internal tension, security lockdowns, and heightened scrutiny creates a volatile environment, forcing aides to operate under constant stress while attempting to maintain stability. The unprecedented White House lockdown is being fueled by a combination of political pressures, operational breakdowns, and internal disagreements that have left Trump struggling to maintain control. Sources close to the administration report that recent controversies, legal challenges, and media scrutiny have intensified stress within the team, creating an environment where decision-making has become fragmented and staff morale is deteriorating. One major factor is the conflict over messaging and strategic priorities. Advisors are reportedly divided, with some advocating aggressive responses to critics and investigations, while others push for restraint to avoid further escalation. These opposing approaches have led to miscommunications, contradictory directives, and confusion among mid-level staffers. In this context, Trump's attempts to assert authority are being undermined, leaving the team reacting more than coordinating, which contributed to the lockdown decision. Additionally, political calculations are compounding the internal pressure. The administration is navigating a volatile public and legislative landscape, where every statement or action is scrutinized by both supporters and opponents. Staffers are caught between managing optics for the media and ensuring operational continuity, forcing them into high-pressure decision-making situations that Trump is reportedly finding increasingly difficult to control. Internal personnel dynamics are another critical factor. Senior aides and longtime staffers have reportedly clashed over authority and protocol, creating factionalism within the team. This infighting has made it harder for Trump to enforce decisions consistently and maintain his usual command over the administration's workflow. Some staffers have even taken the initiative to implement emergency measures independently, such as the lockdown, highlighting the extent to which internal control has slipped. Finally, external pressures, legal investigations, media scrutiny, and partisan criticism have amplified internal instability. Trump is facing simultaneous crises that demand rapid responses, yet the team's internal disagreements slow reaction times and increase the perception of chaos. The White House lockdown is thus both a symptom and a preventive measure, designed to contain escalating tensions, protect sensitive operations, and prevent further erosion of authority. Following the lockdown, White House staffers have been working around the clock to regain control of the administration's operations. Security teams remain on high alert, closely monitoring movement across floors, controlling access to sensitive areas, and coordinating with senior aides to ensure that no further disruptions occur. Their rapid response is aimed at protecting both personnel and critical communications channels, preventing minor conflicts from escalating into larger operational failures. Senior aides are reportedly taking a hands-on approach to conflict resolution, holding emergency meetings, clarifying responsibilities, and streamlining directives to reduce confusion. These measures are intended to restore a sense of order and ensure that strategic decisions are implemented consistently, rather than being stalled by internal disagreements. Staffers are also working to maintain media and public-facing operations, controlling messaging while the internal situation stabilizes. Some sources indicate that mid-level managers have been empowered to make critical operational decisions independently, acting as a buffer between conflicting factions and Trump himself. This delegation is a temporary but necessary measure to ensure continuity and prevent the administration from descending further into chaos. The lockdown and stabilization efforts also highlight a broader reality. Even high-level political operations are vulnerable to internal pressure and mismanagement. When leadership is divided or decision-making becomes inconsistent, staffers may be forced to take extraordinary measures to maintain basic functionality, as is occurring now. Despite these efforts, the environment remains tense. Trump's ability to reassert control depends not only on his decisions, but also on whether internal factions can realign under a cohesive chain of command. The coming hours and days will be critical in determining whether the administration can stabilize itself, or if further disruptions and high-profile conflicts will occur. The White House lockdown and internal emergency are being magnified by external pressures from multiple fronts, creating a perfect storm that challenges Trump's ability to maintain control. Media coverage has been relentless, with news outlets and social media platforms broadcasting updates on the lockdown, internal conflicts, and operational disruptions. This 24/7 scrutiny amplifies the sense of chaos, forcing staffers and advisors to juggle crisis management with public perception simultaneously. Political pressures are equally significant. Lawmakers, party leaders, and influential donors are reportedly watching the unfolding situation closely. Some allies are urging restraint and strategic communication, while others are expressing frustration over the instability, potentially weakening Trump's influence and bargaining power. These pressures create a high-stakes environment where every statement or decision could have immediate political repercussions. Legal and investigative scrutiny adds another layer of tension. Ongoing lawsuits, financial inquiries, and other investigations place additional demands on senior aides and legal advisors, increasing the urgency for coordinated responses. Staffers must ensure that operational decisions, messaging, and security protocols do not inadvertently compromise legal positions or provide leverage to opponents. The convergence of media, political, and legal pressures transforms an internal operational challenge into a national spectacle. The lockdown, initially intended as a preventive measure, now also serves as a symbol of the administration's fragility under mounting scrutiny. It underscores the reality that even the most powerful offices are vulnerable to disruption when leadership control falters. Observers note that the coming hours are critical. The ability of staff and security teams to navigate internal chaos while managing external pressures will determine whether the administration can regain stability or continue spiraling into public and operational crises. Inside the White House, Trump is reportedly attempting to reassert control over his team amid the lockdown and mounting internal tensions. Sources indicate that he is holding a series of private meetings with senior aides and advisors, issuing directives and trying to clarify his authority, while managing conflicting advice from multiple factions within his administration. Trump's approach appears to be a mix of defiance and damage control. On one hand, he is insisting that decisions align with his priorities and vision, signaling to staff that he remains in charge despite the disruption. On the other hand, he is being advised to temper reactions and avoid further escalation, recognizing that any misstep could worsen internal instability or create negative media attention. This balancing act highlights the difficulty of asserting authority in an environment where trust and coordination are strained. Insiders report that Trump is also actively monitoring external narratives, including media coverage, social media activity, and political reactions. His team is reportedly coordinating rapid responses to leaks and public reports to maintain an appearance of control, even as the lockdown and internal conflicts continue to dominate the administration's operations. Additionally, Trump's personal style, decisive, confrontational, and often reactive, has both energized loyal staffers and exacerbated tensions among those seeking structured, consistent management. This duality contributes to the current operational friction, with staffers needing to act independently at times while still aligning with Trump's directives. The White House lockdown has reverberated far beyond internal corridors, sending shockwaves across the political landscape. Allies, rivals, and party leaders are watching closely, assessing the situation for both strategic and reputational implications. For many, the visible chaos represents a test of loyalty and judgment. Those closest to Trump must decide whether to double down on support, advocate for restraint, or distance themselves entirely. Reports indicate that key GOP figures are holding backroom discussions to evaluate potential responses. Some advisors argue for a united front, emphasizing that public appearances of stability are critical to maintain political credibility and donor confidence. Others caution that prolonged internal chaos may weaken Trump's influence, embolden political opponents, and erode public trust in the administration's ability to govern. Rivals, both within the party and outside it, are seizing the moment to highlight instability. Political commentators and opposition leaders are framing the lockdown as evidence of a leadership crisis at the highest levels, emphasizing that the executive branch is vulnerable when internal conflicts disrupt normal operations. Social media amplification has further intensified scrutiny, with viral posts and trending hashtags fueling public debate about competence, authority, and accountability. The situation also affects broader strategic calculations. Donors, lobbyists, and influential political operatives are reportedly reevaluating support, weighing loyalty against potential reputational risk. Every decision, endorsement, funding allocation, or public statement is being influenced by the perception of instability, creating a ripple effect that could reshape alliances and political priorities in the months ahead. Ultimately, the lockdown is more than an internal operational measure. It has become a national political event, signaling that internal administrative crises can have immediate consequences on public perception, party dynamics, and strategic positioning. The White House lockdown has triggered an unprecedented media frenzy, dominating news cycles, talk shows, and social media platforms. Headlines such as "White House in Crisis" and "Trump Loses Control" have spread rapidly, with live coverage dissecting every aspect of the lockdown, internal disagreements, and operational disruptions. The dramatic visuals and breaking updates have created a sense of real-time political suspense, keeping viewers glued to updates as the story unfolds. Public reaction is sharply divided. Supporters frame the lockdown as overblown or politically motivated, portraying Trump as a leader unfairly targeted by critics and institutional forces. Critics, however, emphasize that the incident demonstrates serious operational and leadership failures, highlighting a White House struggling to maintain order amid multiple crises. Social media platforms have amplified both narratives, with trending posts, viral clips, and hotly debated threads ensuring that the lockdown remains at the center of public attention. The media coverage is also influencing political behavior. Party leaders, donors, and strategists are monitoring the fallout closely, knowing that public perception can impact support, fundraising, and strategic decisions. Leaks and insider reports are being circulated selectively, shaping narratives and guiding responses both within Washington and among the broader electorate. Observers note that this external amplification creates a feedback loop of pressure. The more the media and public focus on internal chaos, the greater the urgency for staffers and Trump himself to act decisively. Even minor missteps are magnified, and the stakes for maintaining control, credibility, and operational stability have never been higher. As the White House lockdown continues to dominate headlines, Trump and his team are reportedly working feverishly to regain control of the administration and restore operational stability. Sources indicate that a combination of strategic decision-making, crisis management, and targeted communication is being deployed to contain internal tensions and mitigate public perception of chaos. One key focus is reasserting authority over staff. Senior aides and advisors are being realigned under a more centralized chain of command to ensure that directives are clear and consistently enforced. By clarifying roles and responsibilities, Trump aims to reduce factional disputes that contributed to the lockdown and prevent similar disruptions in the future. Messaging and media management are also central to the strategy. Trump's team is coordinating rapid responses to leaks, social media speculation, and breaking news coverage. The goal is to project stability and decisiveness, demonstrating that the administration remains in control despite internal turbulence. Advisors are reportedly coaching Trump on when to speak publicly and how to frame updates to minimize further scrutiny while maintaining political influence. Legal and political advisors are monitoring the broader implications. The lockdown has drawn attention from lawmakers, party leaders, and donors, who are weighing both loyalty and reputational risk. Every decision is being measured against potential consequences for political capital, party cohesion, and long-term strategy. Trump's next moves must navigate this complex web of internal, legal, and political pressures simultaneously. Ultimately, regaining control requires a delicate balance, asserting leadership without further inflaming tensions, stabilizing operations, and managing external narratives to protect credibility. The coming days will be critical, as both staff and Trump must demonstrate that the administration can function effectively under pressure. The White House lockdown is not just an internal operational challenge. It is a high-stakes test of authority, resilience, and political strategy. How Trump navigates this unprecedented crisis could shape his influence, the administration's functionality, and public perception for months to come.